present Kenneth Williams, Clement Freud, Peter Jones, and Aimi MacDonald in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons. Thank you very much indeed. Hello and welcome once again to Just a Minute. Well, once again, we're pleased to welcome back in the fourth chair Aimi MacDonald, who has played the game a few times to compete against these three tough male exponents of the game, Kenneth Williams, Clement Freud, and Peter Jones. Once again, I'm going to ask them to speak, if they can, for just 1 minute on some unlikely subject, without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject on the card, if they can. And let us begin with Kenneth Williams.
How appropriate, how lovely.
Kenneth, the subject we've chosen for you is hairy legs.
Oh.
So will you speak, please, on hairy legs for just 1 minute, starting now?
Well, curious subject for me. I would have thought it should have been expressed otherwise. Hirsute would have been more appropriate. However, I have heard people say, oh, you got hairy legs. And I've often thought it was very, very attractive. Oh, I said very twice.
Oh, and Clement Freud has challenged. Clement,
he said very 3 times.
You would have, if you kept going, they might have let you get away with it, Kenneth. But actually, yes, you were repetitious, so I agree with Clement's challenge. So he takes over the subject, a point for a correct challenge. Clement, there are 43 seconds left, starting now.
A very great friend of mine didn't so much have hairy legs, but had...
Peter Jones.
Hesitation.
You're very keen all of a sudden, Peter.
Well, I'm determined to play a very aggressive game. I'm not too satisfied about this chair, actually.
Well, you're sitting next to Aimi MacDonald. I don't see why you should complain.
Well,
actually, your aggressive game was, I think, a bit too aggressive, because I don't think he really did hesitate. So I disagree with
What did he do?
He didn't do any of the faults for which
Didn't he hesitate?
No, he didn't hesitate. Didn't deviate. And didn't do anything else. He actually, so, Peter, disagreeing with your challenge, it means that Clement Freud gains a point for a wrong challenge, keeps the subject, 39 seconds left, starting now.
And while his left leg sprouted black, brown, and ginger hair, his right one was entirely smooth, as a baby's cheek.
Kenneth Williams.
Well, deviation, it wouldn't sprout all those colours, would it? I mean, it would either give one kind of hair or none at all.
Clement, I agree with Kenneth's challenge. He takes over the subject, a point for the correct challenge. 29 seconds left for hairy legs, Kenneth, starting now.
When I played a lady in Singapore in an army show, they said you've got to shave your legs, you know, because she's supposed to look nice, so I had to put these nylon stockings on so that the front row would think I was a lady. So,
Clement Freud.
Repetition.
Yes.
Of lady.
Of lady.
What interested? She's leaning forward there.
Oh. Clement, I agree with the challenge. You have 14 seconds on hairy legs, starting now.
Nobody in Great Yarmouth has hairier legs than 1, 2...
Aimi MacDonald, you challenged. What?
Hesitation.
I think I agree, yes.
Yes.
He couldn't think of this man in Great Yarmouth who had the hairier legs then. 9 seconds left, Aimi, for you on hairy legs, starting now.
Well, some people have short, fat, hairy legs, and some people have long, thin ones.
Peter, why did you challenge?
Repetition of some people.
How?
Yes, I think that's very unchivalrous after what I said at the beginning.
I was
Well, I
concentrating
did-
so much on hairy legs, not repeating that.
Quite, yes.
I did the other thing.
Well,
And that's what's difficult, isn't it? But
I was thinking of legs at the
Yes,
same
you're
time.
bringing out this new aggressive image. All right, Peter. So there are 4 seconds left for hairy legs with you, Peter, starting now.
Can be quite attractive so long as they are not shaved.
That whistle was blown for us by Ian Mexeter, the creator of this devious game, and it tells us that 60 seconds is up, and as you know, whoever's speaking at that particular moment gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Peter Jones who now has 2, Aimi MacDonald has 1, Clement Freud has 3, Kenneth Williams has 1, and we move to the second subject, which is a long word for Clement Freud to start with. Monosodium glutamate. Clement, will you talk to us about that for monosodium glutamate for 60 seconds, starting now?
In this day and age, it's almost impossible to buy a tin in a popular store which does not contain this substance. Monosodium glutamate is, in fact, an artificial taste stimulant which has about it an element of preservative. And whether you buy sandwich spread hamburgers, or...
Peter Jones, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes, I quite agree, Peter. So you gain a point for a correct challenge and the subject. There are 35 seconds left, and that was a subject I'm sure Clement can talk about. But can you talk about monosodium glutamate for 35 seconds starting now?
When you read the phrase, other ingredients to enhance the natural flavor, then they are referring to monosodium glutamate. And when it is added to national dishes like hot pot and bakewell tart and...
Aimi MacDonald, why have you challenged?
Because you don't put it in hot pot.
Of course, this is one of the problems.
You can put it. It's a matter of taste.
Yes, this is what I was about to say. This is the problem the chairman has. You can put it in your hot pot. Maybe Peter Jones put it in his hot pot, but I don't think most of us put it in our hot pot. And I'm sure, Aimi MacDonald, you don't put it in your hot pot.
Oh, no, never.
But it's not a question of fact. I mean, is she challenging on a question of fact?
No, she's challenging on a question of accuracy, and I would say generally...
But accuracy isn't a rule in this game. No, it isn't accurate that you can't buy tins of things that don't contain it.
I have to give the benefit of the doubt to somebody, Peter. On this occasion, it goes to the person who hasn't played the game as often as you, Aimi MacDonald, and she has 17 seconds for monosodium glutamate starting now.
Monosodium glutamate is spelled MONOSODIUM.
Clement Freud is challenged. What?
Repetition.
Of what?
Yes, you said Brilliant. How you're...
Clement, you have monosodium glutamate back with you for 11 seconds starting now.
There is on the market a Japanese delicacy which consists almost entirely of monosodium glutamate. It's a sort of cocktail savory which people have with...
I think a very clever person could have challenged just on the last second there, because Clement actually paused for the last 2 seconds and didn't say anything. But Clement, you were speaking when the whistle went, so you gain the extra point, and you have a commanding lead at the end of that round. And now we begin with Aimi MacDonald. Aimi, the subject for you that Ian has thought of is the average man. So, as an unaverage woman, would you talk about the average man for 60 seconds starting now?
The average man is about 5 foot 8 inches tall, got medium brown hair, light brown eyes, weighs about 12 stone, and usually has legs, 2 arms, a nose, 2 eyes, a neck, a face, hair, a pot belly, and he usually goes to work. I can't go on.
All right, Aimi, I'll challenge you. Right. Oh, they've had a challenge. Just in the nick of time they had a challenge. Aimi MacDonald, you've challenged yourself. Well, that was very quick thinking. So, Aimi, what are you challenging for? Hesitation?
Oh, yes.
I quite agree, definitely. So you get a point for hesitating, and... you were so quick to challenge yourself, so having got another point, you continue with the subject. And there are 25 seconds left on the average man. I didn't know the average man would dry you up to that extent, Aimi. But continue for 25 seconds, starting now.
The average man usually finds an average woman, and they both get married, and they usually live in an average house. I'm getting all mixed up again.
Disgrace, she can't go on. I mean...
Well, I think it's very chivalrous you to help her out, Kenneth.
I'm not helping her out. Just dry out. That's all she can
All right, what are you challenging for? Hesitation, repetition, or deviation? All
What
three.
is it when you dry out?
What's that? The whole lot.
The whole lot.
The whole lot, all right. I will give you 1 point for the whole lot. I can't give you 3 points. I'm
Right.
sorry, Kenneth.
Right.
You have the average man. There are 15 seconds left, starting now.
The average man is an unknown quantity. This is the sort of generalization that is continually made, like the one about pedestrians and motorists. Neither exist. A man drives a car, he gets out of a car. What is the...
Clement Freud is challenged.
How dare people... I'm in the
middle of a bit of erudition here.
Erudition? People driving cars? Erudition?
Yes, that's erudition, that is, describing the whole process. What's your challenge, anyway?
What is your... You made him dry up now. Right.
Repetition of car.
Yes, there's a lot of repetition. There was a repetition of car. Clement very cleverly got in with only one...
cleverly got in. That's the word, isn't it?
Yes.
Cleverly got in. You noticed that, didn't you?
Yes. You could have got in at the end of the last round. He paused for 2 seconds, Kenneth.
I know his trick.
You would take a leaf out of his book and get in at the end of him, but you can't
Wait
on this
till the
one.
last minute.
Because he only has 1 second left on the average man, Clement, starting now.
Mary.
Right, Clement Freud was speaking when the whistle went once again, and he's increased his lead at the end of that round. Peter Jones, we begin with you in this round, and the subject is snakes and ladders. Can you talk on that for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, both of them are very unpleasant things to get in your stockings. And snakes have got a very bad name for being slimy and generally unpleasant, though I've stroked a snake in the zoo where I happen to have a fellow friend, or a friend who is a fellow.
Clement Freud, it sounds why.
2 fellows.
2 fellows, 2 friends. Oh, Clement, you have a correct challenge and a point and 41 seconds for snakes and ladders starting now.
A little-known aspect of snakes and ladders, which is, as most people know, a game, is that if you turn it upside down, the snakes become the goodies and the ladders become the baddies. And many a happy hour has been spent by people using...
Peter Jones has challenged.
Repetition of people.
Yes. And there was other repetitions which you missed about...
Yes, but I don't have to forfeit anything for missing something. I've missed all kinds of things.
All right, Peter. 24 seconds on snakes and ladders, starting now.
Yes, well, I'm sorry.
Kenneth Williams.
Worried about things I've missed.
Yes, I think there was a definite hesitation. You would agree with that, would you?
Yes, but I was thinking about the things I'd missed. I don't think you ought to introduce that at all.
All right, and so there are 22 seconds on the snakes and ladders for you, Kenneth, starting now.
Well, you throw this dice, you see, and it entitles you to move in a certain direction. It says, forfeit £100, go back to point 1, or you can win the whole of Mayfair. Now, I once did have the whole of all these properties, and it was incredible. I'm getting more work done. What?
Deviation.
What?
You're talking about another game.
Oh, silly me. I'm a fool I am.
You don't win Mayfair and snakes and ladders.
Oh, sorry.
You win that Monopoly, don't
you? Yes, I got it mixed up with red nines. I'm always doing that, as you know.
Anyway, 9 seconds on snakes and ladders with you, Amy, starting now.
Ladders are very necessary things, actually. Every home should have one, because if you have a place that you want to get at and it's very high up, then the only way to go is up.
MacDonald was then speaking when the whistle went. She gained that extra point, and she is now very definitely in a good second place behind Clement Freud, who's still our leader, and Kenneth and Peter about equal in 3rd place. And Kenneth, we're back with you. Your turn to begin. A nice subject that Ian has thought of for you, Herculaneum. Can you talk to us about it for 60 seconds, starting now?
It, I believe, was situated in the Gulf of Naples, and alongside the other town of Pompeii suffered the terrible disaster when Vesuvius erupted and destroyed them both. I believe archaeological remains show the people do lie in their beds as they were uncovered in the act, so to speak. Here!
Peter has challenged.
Hesitation.
No, not at all.
I quite agree, Kenneth. Keep going. You have another point and 42 seconds starting now.
Gibbon remarks upon the fact that of the wisest emperor, he quotes, of course, Antoninus Pius, but the wisest, he says, was undoubtedly Hadrian. And I would say perhaps the title, or the appellation, generous, should be applied to Titus. It was under Titus's reign, of course, the city was
terribly boring. Terribly boring.
What is your challenge within the rules of the game?
Obvious what crowd he's got in here tonight, isn't it?
Just being boring. I mean, he did hesitate earlier on, and I stopped him on that account, and you said he didn't hesitate or you wouldn't allow it. So I thought, well, boring. That's a good one. I mean, he is boring. And,
I disagree with you. It's a difficult decision about hesitating. I disagree. I don't think he did hesitate before. But actually, boring is not a rule of the game, and unless you can think of another challenge within the rules of the game, I have to give Kenneth another point for an incorrect challenge and ask him to continue. And you have 2 seconds to answer me now. Kenneth, you have a point, and you have 28 seconds for Herculaneum starting now.
Yes, the grottos of Herculaneum have been uncovered by the archaeologists.
Clement Freud's challenge.
Repetition.
What?
Uncovered.
Yes, things have been a lot of uncovering going on in this particular... Kenneth, and they weren't...
I suppose he's got in on the last minute again, has he?
No, 23 seconds for Herculaneum starting now.
I've always felt that 23 seconds was about the right length of time to devote to Herculaneum.
Peter Jones, why have you challenged?
deviation.
Why?
Certainly, deviate absolutely.
Shut up, Kenneth. What are you going to say, Peter?
Because he's not talking about the subject. He's talking about what he's always felt.
That's right.
And I don't want to know.
Well, actually, I think he said that he thought 23 seconds is about enough time. He's always felt it was about enough time to talk about Herculaneum. So he's not deviated from the subject on the card, Herculaneum. And much as I'd like to bring you in, because you're trying very hard, Peter, I've got to be accurate, otherwise I get lots of letters, and say Clement Freud has another point, and there are 19 seconds on Herculaneum starting now.
Whereas 19 seconds is far too little.
Deviation, this preoccupation with time has nothing to do with Herculaneum. Well, you know it as well as I know. Now stop shilly-shallying, Nick. Now come on.
That we have a lovely audience here in the BBC Play.
Lovely audience, but I had buy in.
Yes. And when I have an impossible decision, I have to put it to the superior wisdom and discretion of our audience. So, ladies and gentlemen, now is your opportunity to give voice. If you agree with Kenneth's challenge, would you please cheer? And if you shut up. And if you disagree, would you please boo? In other words, if you feel I should not give it to Kenneth but to Clement Freud, the boos for Clement, the cheers for Kenneth, start together now.
I'll get all those that booed outside.
There's only about one, I think.
Yeah, that's enough.
All right, that's enough for you to get a point, and the subject, 15 seconds, Herculaneum starting now.
One of the most beautiful of these grottos uncovered depicted...
Aimi...
wait a minute.
Repetition.
Yes.
Uncovered again, darling.
It's uncovering. It's going on all the time. And grotto. You keep uncovering your grotto, Kenneth. This is a family show, as I so often heard you say. Amy, you have 10 seconds on Herculaneum starting now.
Well, once upon a time, there was a great big man who came from a town called Herculaneum. This man had huge muscles, and he used to walk around carrying the world on his shoulders. His name was...
Obviously, Amy, you must always get in 10 seconds before the end, because you can just go for 10 seconds without giggling, can't you?
I've just cottoned on to that.
Yes. All right. Well, your cottoning on is keeping you in a good second place behind Clement Freud, who's still in the lead, and Kenneth and Peter have got points as well. They're well in third place. And Amy MacDonald, your turn to begin. The subject, how I look in hot pants. Would you talk on that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, I don't wear hot pants very much, but if I do, I suppose I look all right.
Kenneth ends the challenge.
Well, all this giggling and laughing about nothing to do with speaking consecutively, is it?
Yes, I think she prefers you to play the game the way you usually play, with thrust and cut and aggression, which you've just done. So you've got her out of a predicament. You've got a point. You have 50 seconds on how I look in hot pants. Starting now.
The answer is, of course, enormously attractive. I occurred on one occasion on the set at Pinewood when I had to do exactly that. And the cries of delight that went up from even electricians, plasterers, carpenters, technicians, sound men, directors, of course, assistant directors,
Clement Freud's challenge.
Repetition of directors.
Yes, I'm afraid. You had the director and the assistant director.
Well, they're two different things, dear.
I know, but they've got the same word, which is repetition, in just a minute. You went through all that list so marvelously. But anyway, Clement, you have a point, and 26 seconds for how I look in hot pants, starting now.
The way I look in hot pants is to ease the waistband towards me and crane my head forward, which becomes difficult because my forehead quite often meets a protrusion which many women have around the place where men do not. But when you succeed, the joys are quite...
Perhaps it's as well we didn't get beyond the point of describing what the joys were. Clement, you have a point for speaking with the whistle wench. You've increased your lead at the end of that round. And Peter Jones, we now move to you for the beginning of the next round. The subject chosen is a cross-section of the public. Would you talk to us about that for 60 seconds, starting now?
I think the cross-section of the public must be almost in the majority by now, judging by the number of slogans
Kenneth Williams,
He's talking so slowly, you know, I mean, you can just fill in for hours going like that.
Yeah, I've heard you do it before now.
Oh, I've never done that. I've always
Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, you were on his side before. Do you think that Kenneth Williams sometimes goes rather slowly in his
Never.
speech? Peter Jones, you have a point, and you have 47 seconds for a cross-section of the public, starting now.
They deface the signs on the underground railways, and they make a mess in telephone boxes, and they also...
Kenneth Williams, you chat.
Please, they, 3 times.
Oh, we don't allow such silly words.
He said they make 3 times.
I don't think he said they may, just said they 3 times. There are 39 seconds, Peter, on a cross-section of the public, starting now.
And, of course,
Amy, you challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes, that's what happens when someone gets thrown by an aggressive challenge and they lose it the next time. Amy, you have a point for a correct challenge, and there are 36 seconds on a cross-section of the public, starting now.
A cross-section of the public is usually very angry. They bump into people on the roads and talk roughly.
Kenneth Williams, why you challenge?
Because there's a deviation nothing to do with a cross-section of the public. Cross-section of the public simply means a sample taken at random of all the people. Nothing to do with a lot of people getting angry, crossing the road and shouting the odds.
Well, of course, if you interpret...
Talking at the top of her age, isn't she? She's arguing, definitely, she agrees.
Another word for angry.
What else can you do in this program except talk off the top of your head? No, if you take the interpretation of cross in the angry sense, then a cross-section of the public moving about the streets would bump into people because they are very aggressive. So I'm afraid I disagree with the challenge, Kenneth. And Amy has another point in 27 seconds on a cross-section of the public, starting now.
One cross-section of the public drive motor cars. And when they bump into each other, they get out and...
Clement Freud is challenged. Why?
We have had that.
No, the
The bump into each
Yes,
other.
so you're having repetition.
Repetition.
Yes, well, all right. Clement, you have the subject, and you have 21 seconds, starting now.
It's very difficult when you're asked to talk to a cross-section of the public because ideally you want to know the identity of the people you're addressing. And recently, at a speech, I asked my hosts, could they give me a breakdown of the cross-section of the public? May I said to the chairman, have them broken down by age and...
All right, so, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, we have no more time to play Just a Minute. The final score was that Kenneth finished in 4th place, 1 point behind Peter Jones. Peter Jones was 1 point behind Amy MacDonald, and Amy was 6 points behind this week's winner, Clement Freud. We do hope you've enjoyed this edition of Just a Minute, and we'll want to tune in again next time. Until then, from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by Simon Brett.
we present Kenneth Williams, Derek Nimmo, Clement Freud, and Andree Melly in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Hello and welcome to Just a Minute. As you just heard, we are very thrilled and delighted to welcome back to Just a Minute, Derek Nimmo. And I'm going to ask them all, if they can, to speak for just 1 minute on some unlikely subject without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject on the card. And we're going to begin the show this week with Kenneth Williams. Kenneth, the subject chosen for you is Things I Never Should Have Done. Many of those, I think, have occurred in just a minute. But would you talk about that subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, there are many things I never should have done, but certainly I would say foremost among them was going into the army. I was down for the Navy, and like a fool, I let myself be pressurized. I should have stuck out for the thing I originally
Andree Melly has challenged you.
Never did a thing.
Well, your buzzer, the light came on because you pressed your buzzer. I
didn't.
Do it again then, will you? Well, that's Derek Nimmo's buzzer. Now, would you like to press the buzzer, Derek? Yes. Was it you who challenged then?
Yes.
Oh, well. What a pleasure to hear from you. Derek, what is your challenge?
I really can't remember at this stage. I think yes, deviation.
Deviation in what way?
I have no idea, really.
It's a long time since you played the game, isn't
yes,
it,
right,
Derek?
yes.
I don't think he was really deviating from the subject on the card, Derek. So what happens is, as I disagree with your challenge, Kenneth gains a point for a wrong challenge. He keeps the subject, and there are 43 seconds left for Things I Never Should Have Done, starting now.
And I never should have left the bayonet on the bed the first day, because it was pinched, and they said to me, you're responsible for army property going.
Clement Freud is challenged.
Repetition.
Of what?
Army.
Yes, we've had the army more than once, I'm afraid. You should have gone the Navy and you went in the army. So I agree with that challenge of repetition. Freud gains a point for a correct challenge and the subject, and there are 35 seconds left, starting now.
The things I never should have done were going into a restaurant and ordering fish fingers, because when they arrived, they were sodden and soggy and dark brown, nearly black, and there was no tomato ketchup, hardly any pickle.
Andree Melly has challenged.
Deviation, because it wouldn't be a restaurant, it would be a nice cafe.
Oh, what a difficult situation. Maybe there are some restaurants that serve fish fingers, for all I know. I don't know. Who can say? Is this one of these occasions when we bow to the superior judgment of the audience? Do you think that Andree Melly has a justifiable challenge that only cafes serve fish fingers? If you agree with Andree's challenge, cheer. And if you disagree, will you boo, and will you all do it together now? Well, there's the fish finger expert. The audience seem to be, I think, of the opinion that only calves sell fish fingers. So, Andree, they're on your side. You gain the subject and a point, of course, and 20 seconds left for Things I Never Should Have Done, starting now.
Things that I never should have done happened mostly before I was about 8, when I wasn't clever enough to get away with complete wickedness. I pushed my elder brother onto the electric fire in front of which he was squatting, and about a year later I broke a dinner plate over his head to see which was the stronger.
Whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion it was Andree Melly, so she has 2 at the end of that round to Clement and Kenneth's 1. Nobody wanted to challenge her on those horrible, devious things that she did to her poor little brother. The Clement Freud, it is your turn to begin, and the subject is strippers. I don't know whether you know anything about them, but if you'd like to try and talk about them for 60 seconds, starting now.
Strippers, it would appear, are men or women who unclothe themselves in public, usually for financial remuneration. It is wrong to think that strippers are as numerous as they would appear to be, because the majority of strippers go to 5 or 6 different clubs, in each of which they enter by one door, unclothe themselves and leave by another. I have this on very good authority because I was once asked by the...
Andree Melly, why have you challenged?
Deviation,
Why?
because if they're stripped and they're leaving by the other door, they would be arrested before they got to the next one.
Next one. No, it's a devious thought, but not devious within the context of the game. So I disagree with the challenge. Clement has a point. 31 seconds on strippers starting now.
I was once sent by the editor of a paper for which I worked to investigate the problem of strippers, and spent in the course of one day some 9 hours going from one establishment to another, trying to find how sexually titivating the public nudity would be for me personally. And I can report that there was not a twinge. Nothing whatsoever happened to me. I returned to the home of my wife and family.
I'm delighted that he got back to his wife and family before the 60 seconds were up. Otherwise, it might have sounded very devious. Clement Freud, you gain an extra point for speaking when the whistle went. You now have a lead of 1 over Andree Melly at the end of that round. Kenneth and Derek are a little way behind. And Andree Melly, it is your turn to begin. Being non-committal. Would you like to talk about that for 60 seconds, starting now?
I really do feel, looking at this subject from the front and back, sideways as well, on the left or right, or even sitting on the fence, that this is something which one should try to cultivate. Politicians are extremely good at it, and those people who issue communiques of heads of state after they've been meeting for hours or days manage to find phrases which mean absolutely nothing at all.
Derek Nimmo, you challenge.
Hesitation.
Derek, I agree with hesitation. You have a point for a correct challenge. There are 33 seconds for you to talk to us now on being non-committal, starting
I
now.
absolutely hate people being non-committal. I do think one should be terribly positive and go out into the wilderness and strike a pose and say something which really means something, unlike the politicians which Andree Melly has mentioned before. And that's why I can talk about them, because I've not mentioned them.
Andree Melly, challenger.
Repetition, because I talked about it before, and deviation, because he's being committed.
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Yes, that's...
No. Which challenge do you wish to give me? I can't accept 2.
Well, looking at it up and down, in and out, the second.
The second. I disagree with them both anyway. Derek Nimmo has a point because I disagree with that challenge, and he has 20 seconds on being non-committal, starting now.
Sometimes when one walks along a country lane and says an occasional or infrequently spoken...
Clement Freud is challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes, an occasional... I think there was another after the occasional wasn't there?
Well,
Yes.
an actually.
Yes, well, we'll have the was hesitation, and the was part of the speech, so Clement Freud has the subject. There are 12 seconds for you, Clement, on being non-committal, starting now.
When I was asked to give my opinion on the game of cricket, I said it really depends very much indeed what you mean, because if you had intended for me...
Well, Clement Freud very cleverly got in with a legitimate challenge before the whistle, so he has increased his lead at the end of that round. But Derek, with his usual panache, did manage to gain 2 points, coming into second place alongside Andree. And Kenneth's 1 point behind. And Derek Nimmo, your turn to begin. A subject which I imagine you've had a great deal of experience of recently, foreign hotels. So you don't even need to make a note of the subject. Just talk about it for 60 seconds, Derek, starting now.
Well, I'm afraid I don't awfully care for foreign hotels. The beds are quite frequently rather hard, and the plumbing I strongly object to. But it's really the breakfast that I find particularly abhorrent. When I wander down and my porridge is not waiting for me, there's no sugar nor cream. The coffee is not of the constituency that I prefer.
Andree Melly, why'd you chant?
Constituency.
No, not his...
Deviation. You can't have a constituent coffee.
No, right.
Political cup of coffee.
He was searching for the word consistency, and constituency came out. But Andree, you have the subject for a correct challenge, and 36 seconds, foreign hotels, starting now.
I've stayed in 4 foreign hotels over the last week and feel really qualified to talk about them. The beds are extremely lumpy is. I can't afford 4 stars and go down to about 2.
Clement Freud is challenged. Why?
Repetition of 4.
Oh, you
4
are.
hotels and 4 stars.
Oh, yes, you should have had 5 hotels. Very well, listen, Clement, there are 25 seconds on foreign hotels starting now.
The extraordinary thing about foreign hotels is they do sell fish fingers. In England, you can only get these things in cafes, as has been established. Not restaurants, but when you go abroad, order whatever you will, and you get the card.
Derek Nimmo's challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes, definitely. He was so piqued about the other challenge, he had to get back to fish fingers, and he tripped himself up because he couldn't get fish fingers back into foreign hotels. So, Derek, you've got him with 6 seconds to go on foreign hotels, and you start now.
The thing I'd like about them is being able to ring down to the bell captain and say, send up a brace of strippers. And when they come out...
And we thought you were leading such a secluded life while you were abroad, Derek. You have crept into second place behind Clement Freud at the end of that round. And Andree Melly, it's your turn to begin. The subject is Wasps. 60 seconds starting now.
Wasps don't like me at all. I was stung 3 times this summer on...
Clement Freud, why have you challenged?
Deviation.
Why?
It's a sign of affection. If they didn't like her, they wouldn't go near her.
You mean the fact that a wasp goes near her, that's a sign of affection?
Yes.
If that's a sign of affection, why do they give such a revolting and painful evidence of it? I would disagree. I disagree with the challenge, Clement, and Andree has 55 seconds on wasps starting now.
When they're in a very high, hot temperature, they like to get near something wet and humid, and this is why they stung me.
Kenneth Williams, a challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes, I thought you could have it for deviation. Idea of Andree Melly being wet and humid.
Hanging out the laundry.
The subject is wasps is now with you, Kenneth Williams, having gained a point, and there are 46 seconds left starting now.
The great thing to remember if you're ever stung by a wasp is to get the vinegar to the place very quickly, because that is the proper antidote, as they always say. And the other thing is always to remember that the bee...
Derek Nimmo has challenged.
Do you mind? I'm in the middle of a conversation. Can't open your mouth in this game.
I know, but when you do, it goes so well. What did you want to say? What do you want to finish?
Don't bother now. What was the challenge?
What was the challenge?
Repetition of always.
Yes, you had 2 always in. Bit of a tough one, but Derek hasn't played the game for a long time, so we'll let him have it. 30 seconds on wasps with you, Derek, starting now.
Because one of the useful things about foreign hotels is when you have your empty jam pot, you can go and put it outside, and little wasps go into the jam pot and get stuck.
Kenneth Williams, what's your challenge?
When you go to a foreign hotel, wasps go inside 2 go. Repetition.
They got me on always. I came on go.
No, he's perfectly legitimate to challenge, and it was repetition of go. So, Kenneth, you have a point, and you have 23 seconds left. Wasps starting now.
Lillian Smythe said to me, when we were at in Forest, we opened the marmalade, and they all rushed to get in the jar, you see. And my husband said, for goodness sake, cover it up, but we couldn't. And they were buzzing all round us, and I got stung, and my daughter got stung.
Clement Freud's challenge, why?
Repetition of stung.
Yes. There are 5 seconds left on wasps with you, Clement, starting now.
White Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
Kenneth Williams has
Deviation, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, nothing to do with wasps.
I don't know what colour or religion most wasps are, actually. But he didn't really get going. What were we going to say after that, Clement?
That's what it stands for.
That's what it stands for.
He's going for an initial thing. It's like saying UNESCO, white Anglo-Saxon, it's all that rubbish. I mean, we could go on and on about what these words really mean forever.
I know,
imps could be said to mean something else, couldn't it?
I know, but he's only just created those initials, hasn't he?
No, he hasn't. In America, wasps.
Absolutely.
If it is not the subject, if it was WASP on the card, it would be all right, but it's not. On the card is written the word wasp, and that's what we've all got to concentrate on.
But I'm afraid, Kenneth, they are often usually referred to as wasps, even when you're using
They
initials.
I never meet people going around saying, he's a wasp.
Same as the rugby football team are the Wasps. And they, I think, originally arose from initials.
Throbbing with anger, I am.
You throb magnificently, and the audience enjoy every beat of your throbbing. And, but I disagree with the challenge, so Clement Freud has another point, and only 2 seconds go, starting now.
And in Wembley, there's a rugby...
Completely irrelevant.
Now, Clement Freud has considerably increased his lead at the end of that round, with points during the round and also the extra one at the end. Derek Nimmo, we are back with you. From wasps, we move to flies. Can you talk about those for 60 seconds, starting now?
I must confess that I've never really been terribly interested in flies until I first came upon this program. There I met Clement Freud, who introduced me to the full glory of flies. He, in fact, is an insectologist of tremendous renown. He goes around...
Clement Freud is challenged. Why?
Deviation.
Why?
I've never heard of me as an insectologist.
He's just being modest.
I haven't even heard of the word insectologist.
No, etymologist.
Well, there you are. 2 things he's learned today. Insectologist, and he's an authority.
Not only that, one of the leading authorities. There are 40 seconds for you on flies, Clement, starting now.
When a man stands on the sill of the 42nd floor of a large building, opens the window, and...
Andree Melly challenged.
He stands on the sill. He's already opened the window. It's deviation.
What was that about deviation?
What did I do?
Oh, it was a contra hesitation if I was you. Packed up about half an hour before.
Yeah. What was your deviation?
Well, that he was standing on the sill, and then he opened the window. So he'd open the window if he was standing on the sill.
Well, you can stand on the sill and open the window. Especially
the sill was outside the window. A hesitation.
Yeah.
He definitely hesitated, but you had him on his deviation first and foremost, which, actually, to be fair, these are the rules of the game. The first thing you say is what I have to accept. So I'm afraid, I don't think it was deviation, and while he's only increasing his lead with an incorrect challenge, I have to keep it with Clement Freud with 31 seconds on flies, starting now.
Having sewn swan's feathers on his arms and legs, he opens his...
Derek Nimmo challenge.
Repetition of opens.
Yes, he opened the window before, and he will have 26 seconds now for flies, Derek, starting now.
Oh, my goodness me. When you go out into a little meadow in the springtime, and there are butterflies and little wasps and all signs of pretty creatures caressing one's brow as one is standing there with the midday sun
Kenneth
pouring
Williams' challenge. Why?
These little creatures don't caress your brow. Deviation, they don't caress your brow. I mean, makes a mockery of a love scene if they do, anyway.
Well, the butterfly might, but the
Have you never been caressed by a butterfly, Kenneth?
They'd probably irritate you if they crawled on your brow. That's what you mean.
Well, even if a butterfly caresses your brow, I don't think a wasp would caress it. But I agree with Kenneth's challenge, actually. So Kenneth has the subject and a point, and there are 12 seconds left, starting now.
They are a continual reminder to us that we need to be properly sanitated against all this filth, because they land on these bits of food, you see, and then you go and eat them. You don't know where they've been, do you? You must brag.
Kenneth struck a chord there which brought applause from the audience, not only for the thought, but also the fact he was speaking when the whistle went. He's gained some more points. He's now equal in third place with Andree Melly. They're both trailing a little behind Derek Nimmo, who is trailing a little behind our leader, who is still Clement Freud, and Kenneth Williams. It is your turn to begin. The lessons of experience. Can you talk to us about that for 60 seconds, starting now?
There are many that maintain that only with experience does one truly learn anything. And I would say that while I cannot go along 100% with this, there is a great deal of truth in it. The hand that is burned by the fire will thereafter be wary of such a thing a second time. And, of course, in the field of personal knowledge such as humility, a learning of what one's proper station is in life, a knowledge of one's own capabilities, all these things are only taught in that hard place where, as Milton said, you win the garland not by cloistered virtue, and not without heat and dust. Heat and dust, you see.
Clement Freud challenged you.
Oh, did he? What's he on about?
Deviation.
What?
Milton didn't say all that.
He certainly did.
It may not... were all the words exactly Milton's? He certainly said something similar.
Not heat and dust repeated twice.
Oh, he didn't repeat it twice. Did I repeat it twice? Oh, well, you should have challenged me on repetition then. You got it all wrong.
I was just about to say exactly what Kenneth...
Oh, yes, Milton. He's from Milton's fame. I admire not a cloistered
I know,
virtue.
but the fact that Milton said some of it, if not all of it...
Oh, it's all of it, yes. It was all of it.
Yeah, but he didn't repeat it. He didn't repeat it. That's it. But he didn't challenge you for repetition, so I'm going to give it to you, Kenneth. You keep the subject with 8 seconds left on the lesson subject. It's the subject that you can learn from, the lessons of experience, starting now.
One thing it certainly taught me was the value of the Trojan Roman alphabet. Now, many people think of this as beginning with 26 letters.
It was an object lesson in experience there. And Clement Freud, your turn to begin. The subject is cats. Can you talk to us about cats for 60 seconds, starting now?
On the Isle of Man, it will be noticed that cats have no tails, whereas in the south of France, they use tomcats for the fixation of perfume. This is really rather a revolting process.
Andree Melly has challenged. Why?
No hesitation. After revolting.
Yes, he thought of how revolting it was, and he hesitated. Yes, it was debatable, but I was going to give you the benefit of the doubt, Andree, and give you... Well, he's way in the lead. He can afford to have the doubt.
No, I don't want charity, no.
I'm giving you a correct challenge, 45 seconds on cats, starting now.
Some people are very boring about cats. They're mad about them, and they go on interminably on the subject. They seem to feel that there's some particular quality about a cat which does not appertain to other four-legged, even two-limbed.
Derek Nimmo challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes, if I'm going to give the other one against Derek, I must give that one against you, Andree. Derek, you have 29 seconds on cats, starting now.
Last week I was in Bangkok, and the curious thing was that as I wandered round the capital of Thailand, as is now called, I could not see one Siamese cat. I then discovered that for some long time they've been exporting them to the United States of America, where apparently they breed most prolifically. I lamented the fact that I could not see these creatures.
Andree Melly has challenged.
A repetition of two could not seize.
Yes.
I couldn't see one single one, and I could not...
Yes, I'm afraid so, Derek. And there are 5 seconds on cats with you, Andree Melly, starting now.
What is a mystery to me is why they like fish, so particularly...
Derek Nimmo has challenged.
Repetition of why.
Huh?
Repetition of why. I said why before.
That's too sharp, really.
Get me on go.
All right.
Be on always. Don't you stop. Bring out the nice box for me, sharp.
All right, he's come back with a very sharp tie from Bangkok. I might tell you, it's a beautiful, magnificent yellow tie. There are 2 seconds on cats, Derek, starting now.
Meow.
Andree Melly challenge.
Hesitation.
Absolutely right, Andree. You have a... And there are 1 second on cats, starting now.
My cat likes dog food.
Well, as Andree and Derek fought out that last round, gaining a number of points, I'm afraid they didn't make a great deal of difference to the final position, because the final position is to be given now as we have no more time to play. Kenneth finished just in 4th place, 2 points behind Andree Melly, who was 2 points behind Derek Nimmo, who was 2 points behind this week's winner, once again, Clement Freud. We do hope you've enjoyed this edition of Just a Minute. And it only remains for me to say, from all of us here, goodbye. The
chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch.
We present Kenneth Williams, Clement Freud, Peter Jones and Sheila Hancock in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Hello and welcome to Just a Minute. And today we are delighted to welcome back Sheila Hancock, who's going to... who's going to pit her wits and brains and knowledge against our three regular male contestants at the game who are too notorious to be introduced again. So let us begin the show this week with Sheila Hancock. But just to remind you, I'm going to ask them all to speak, if they can, for just 1 minute on some unlikely subject without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject on the card. Sheila, will you begin, please, with the subject of sneakers? Can you talk about sneakers for 60 seconds, starting now?
These are a peculiarly nasty type of people whom I have met many of, particularly when I was at school. I remember there was one particular girl called Anne Roberts, whom I hope is not listening, but she was pretty nasty. And I joined the Young Farmers Club on one occasion. And she let out to the headmistress that the only reason I joined this organization was that when I was supposed to be cleaning out the rabbits, I gave my milk to junior members of the school.
Clement Freud has challenged. Why?
Hesitation.
Oh, you mean?
No, I don't think it was quite. Almost hesitation, but not quite. So, Sheila, you have a point, and you keep the subject. You have 30 seconds left, and you start now.
And this girl sneaked to Miss Jane's that that's what I was doing. She also told her that the only reason I joined the cricket team was that we played on a pitch that was next to the boys' school. And on top of that, I used to pretend I was hot and take my skirt off so they could see my knickers. And she told this lady about it, and this lady wasn't best pleased. However, when I got...
Well, whoever's speaking when the whistle goes in this game, as you well know, gains the extra point, and it was Sheila Hancock.
You're being very gracious, because
well,
I did repeat this lady, didn't you?
Yes, you did, but once you took your skirt off to show your knickers, they resisted that sense of deviation, or maybe they didn't think it was very devious. Anyway, Sheila, at the end of that round, you have 2 points. You have a commanding lead over everybody else, because they've yet to speak.
Yes.
So we now move on to Peter Jones. Peter, the subject is civil servants. Can you talk about them for 60 seconds, starting now?
They are usually associated with forms and offices. They do useful work. The most attractive civil servant I ever met was in Colwyn Bay during the war. She'd been evacuated from Whitehall. Her name was Veronica Hawksworth. If by any chance she is listening to this broadcast, I should be very pleased to hear from her again. She was a delightful civil servant. I don't know exactly what papers she had to deal with, but one of her envelopes I still treasure to this day. And on St. Valentine's Eve every year, I open it and read it so that I can refresh my memory of this wonderful incident.
Clement Freud, why are you challenged?
Deviation. You can't open an envelope annually.
You can't open an envelope?
He said he kept the envelope.
Yes.
And every year on St. Valentine's Eve, he opened it.
Yes.
There are
and
only
then
a
the day
limited
after
number of years.
St. Valentine's Eve, I closed it again.
I think Peter's made his point. I mean, after all, what do you mean by opening an envelope? Do you mean that you have to actually lift the flap, or you have to break it open? I mean, you can have a broken flap and just lift it up and pull it apart and take out the letter, and that could be described as opening the envelope.
He never mentioned the letter.
What?
He never mentioned a letter.
I'm coming to the letter.
I was afraid of.
Magnificently. I'm fascinated with Veronica Hawksworth. I want to know, and I would like to know next week if she writes as well, Peter. No, I disagree with the challenge. You have a point for a wrong challenge, and you have 13 seconds to continue with civil servants starting now.
It was written on the traditional government buff notepaper, and the date was October the 15th, 1941. And it said, "Dear Peter, I have been waiting to write to you for..."
Kenneth Williams was challenged just before the whistle.
I don't believe civil servants write to you by your Christian name, address you like that, dear Peter. Be love next, won't it?
We've met in...
But if you'd had this close relationship with Veronica Hawksworth...
But it's on government buff notepaper, he said so.
She couldn't afford the other.
We met in the bomb shelter.
And she was using... Look, just because poor Veronica's been compromised in this way and Peter's letting secrets out of the bag or out of the envelope, saying how she happens to filch a piece of government buff paper to write a personal letter saying, "Dear Peter," I'm completely with this story. I'm absolutely with Peter. You have 2 seconds on civil servants, Peter, starting now.
There were other civil servants in the same office.
So Peter Jones kept going on the subject that he started with and gained the extra point for speaking when the whistle went. So now he has 3 points, a lead of 1 over Sheila at the end of that round. And Kenneth and Clement have yet to score. And Kenneth, we now hear from you with the subject of Charles Stuart. And you have 60 seconds starting now.
Well, as Veronica Hawksworth always used to say, this is a King Charles's head. And this means a preoccupation of sorts, and of course stems from the fact that this monarch was executed. He married this woman, Henrietta Maria, who brought over a load of priests and things with her and caused a lot of agrimony.
Sheila Hancock has challenged you.
Well, it was a touch of your hesitations, wasn't it, really?
A touch of the repetitions of
I was mixed up between aggravation and acrimony.
Yeah.
I know, it's so difficult when you have to
I knew what I was after. It wasn't hesitation, it was stumbling.
And Sheila was the quickest on the buzzer there, so... And so she gains a point for a correct challenge. She takes over the subject, and there are 34 seconds left, Sheila. Charles Stuart starting now.
He did cause a lot of aggravation. However, he did have pretty ringlets and black wig and loved spaniels. I think that's the one we're talking about anyway. And he had a son called James. He, I think, was a descendant of Mary...
Clement Freud.
Repetition of think.
Yes, we've had a bit too much thinking there. It's very difficult.
Well, I'm having to, you know, because I don't know much about him.
Well, as you think, don't say you're thinking.
No, I'm delving the depths of me ignorance.
Clement Freud, I agree with your challenge. You take over the subject. There are 18 seconds left. Charles Stuart starting now.
After the interregnum, Charles II came to the throne in 1660 and immediately proved himself to be...
Kenneth Williams is challenged.
Because it's not the one we're discussing.
But the subject on the card is Charles Stuart.
Yeah, well, that always refers to Charles I.
No, it could be Charles the Young Pretender, couldn't it?
No,
he was Charles Stuart. The Young Pretender was Charles Stuart, wasn't he?
It always refers to Charles I, and Sheila Hancock rightly described Charles I.
It could be Charles...
I was describing Charles II, actually.
It's what it is.
Oh. I thought it was Charles II.
Oh, well done, Sheila.
Well, they're all Stuarts, aren't they? They all happen to be called
actually,
Charles.
If you wanted, it's what I actually read out. You could say this was Charles Steuart, who's a chap who lives just down the road from me. You could talk about him if you wanted. Anyway, so I disagree with the challenge, Kenneth. Clement gets a point.
You couldn't expect us to talk about him. You know, we don't know anyone in your area of London, at least I don't.
Well, I thought Kenneth talked about Veronica Hawksworth, and he'd never met her before.
No, but she's the one that rushed in and said, "Mine's a light," and somebody poured a bucket of cold water over her.
Let's get back to just a minute, shall we? 8 seconds for you, Clement Freud, having got an extra point for a wrong challenge. Charles Stuart starting now.
Prior to the king that I've just mentioned, Charles I of Stuart came to the throne in 1603 and was a good...
Charles, was it 1603?
Yes.
Oh, I wasn't sure. Clement Freud, you've taken the lead at the end of that round, alongside Sheila Hancock and Peter Jones. And Clement, you begin now, and the subject is minis. You have 60 seconds on minis, starting now.
Minis is the plural of mini, which is anything small or particularly, yes.
Kenneth Williams, you have challenged.
Well, hesitation.
Yes, he was going rather slowly. He was doing a sort of Kenneth Williams, I thought, actually. The thing is that actually on that 1603, I think you were a bit confused. 1603 was James the First. He came to throne in 1603.
Yes, but it's not up to the chairman to object.
Especially after the event.
Halfway through the next subject.
Well, I tell you why. I do get a lot of letters, and I would have had a letter saying nobody challenged Clement Freud. Then he said that Charles I came to the throne in 1603. And when I said, was it James I, and you said, oh, yes, it was, I would have had letters saying, you're an ignorant old so-and-so, Parsons. It wasn't. It was James I. So I've now, I hope, stopped all those hundreds of letters coming in. Thank you for writing, but don't write on this subject.
I only said it because I would like someone to write to me. I never did that.
Actually, he often does it in order to try them out and see if they will challenge him. He dares them. Kenneth, stop yawning and let's carry on. You have the subject for a correct challenge. You have 50 seconds on minis, starting now.
She was dewy, Minnie Dyer, as a soft September morn, with her cheeks as red as apples and her hair as gold as corn. Those were the attributes they said were minis. They belonged to her like a bicycle lamp, which hung red on the back at night, and they could see her coming, and the view from the front was not as good as the one from behind.
Peter Jones has challenged. I think I know why.
Well, it's this red lamp on the back, and they could see her coming.
Yes.
She couldn't ride the bicycle backwards.
No.
Not even a woman with those attributes.
I quite agree, even with those attributes.
Rubbish. It says she would pedal through the village. And she didn't pay no mind. Up in front, her little basket and her big red lamp behind. Good grief, if you're not familiar with the folk songs of old England, one of the great, Minnie Dyer, one of the great folk songs of England, Minnie Dyer.
If she had a little red lamp on the back and a big basket in front, they couldn't see her coming. They'd see her going if it was the red lamp, wouldn't they? No, I agree with Peter's challenge. You said the red lamp on the back and they saw her coming. If she was as big as this, with her basket as well, they wouldn't have seen the red lamp when she was coming towards them, because that was behind her, wasn't it?
You're being very meticulous, huh?
I tried to be fair.
Which you're going.
Peter, I agree with your challenge.
Oh, yes, Peter, you're lovely and wonderful. The blue-eyed boy this week he is.
All right, Peter, you have 25 seconds on minis, starting now.
They're small, square motor cars with a wheel on each corner, and they've been exported.
Kenneth Williams has challenged. Why?
Of course the wheels aren't on each corner. You're being so meticulous, I think you'll have to disagree with that. But if
I do
if the
disagree
wheels were on
with...
the corners, it'd be a very funny car.
I do disagree with it, Kenneth. I do. I disagree with your challenge. Because everything must have a corner, providing it's not round, and a Mini is not round. So there must be 4 corners to a car, and approximately as far as you can get, you have
Of course there are corners to it, but the wheels aren't on the corners. They're underneath in the chassis, and they all face in the same direction. How can they be all going on corners?
We are
if they were all on the corner,
very
the whole car would go
imprecise
round
now.
itself, wouldn't it? Ludicrous rubbish. I mean,
actually,
don't you agree with me?
a Mini...
You agree, shout, yeah. Can't beat. Always ask the audience. You can't beat.
He's just rabble.
Actually, the more if you put it to the audience, it'll only make me go the other way, actually. I'll be determined to give it again.
Well, you will earn their despite. They'll hate you for it.
Have I earned your despite? Yes! Well, go out and we'll get another audience in. But I tell you what I do. I will be fair. I will put it to the superior judgment, knowledge, and intelligence. And I ask you, in spite of the encouragement that you have received from Kenneth Williams, who has been appealing to you in a very underhand way, in this particular way, unsportsmanlike, I would put it. If you agree with Kenneth Williams' challenge that the wheels of a Mini are not on the corners, would you boo? And if you disagree, and that Peter Jones is correct in what he says, or almost correct, that's enough in this, will you cheer? And will you all do it together now? Kenneth Williams, I have to bow to the superior judgment of the audience. You have the subject. Minis don't have wheels on their corners. You have 19 seconds on Minis, starting now.
Well, they are very renowned for the fact that they use up very little petrol.
Peter Jones' challenge, why?
Repetition of very. They're very renowned and they use up very little petrol.
And that's a very little challenge. I'll tell you what, it is so tough. If we start, immediately buzzing on every very and af and if...
You mean I ought to hesitate first?
Well, of course, if you're going to challenge on that, I have to be fair and say yes. So, all right, Peter, you have a point and you have the subject back, and there are 11 seconds left, starting now.
And another wheel for steering it inside the car. And this is a light metal device which is attached by a ratchet or some other...
Peter Jones is then speaking when the whistle went, so he gained the extra point then, and he has increased his lead at the end of that round. Sheila Hancock, we're back with you. Your turn to begin. The subject is shortening. Can you talk about shortening? You're shortening your thumbnail at the moment in anticipation of it. 60 seconds starting now.
This is a sort of bread that Mama's little baby is very fond of. And I haven't the slightest idea how it's made, so I'll go on to the subject of shortening dresses, which is something I know a great deal about, having been a younger sister. I don't think I ever had a new dress when I was a child. All the time I had shortened...
Kenneth,
deviation. This is plainly appealing to the audience for sympathy. I'm not having this.
Well,
it's plainly making a direct appeal.
Yes.
She's trying all that pathos stuff on.
Quite agree,
Kenneth. Is she a pathos? She's trying on the pathos, isn't she? The one woman's crying. Look at her.
And Kenneth, I quite agree. And the last time somebody appealed to the audience, they got a point from them, and that was you.
Oh.
So I will give Sheila a point on this occasion. I will give Sheila the point, and she has 38 seconds on shortening, starting now.
What happens is that you have to stand on a chair, and your mother turns up the hem with some pins, after which, usually, if she's a very thorough needlewoman, she tacks it up, tries it on again to see that it is level, and you have to swivel round, and she measures it from the hem to the ground.
And Clement Freud challenge.
Repetition of hem.
Yes, that is correct, Clement, and you have 16 seconds on shortening, starting now.
In the United States of America, shortening is a term given to any sort of fat, be it dripping, butter, or cooking oil. And this is very deceiving for people.
Kenneth Williams' challenge.
Very deceiving.
You were very sharp then. I gave you the benefit of the doubt the last time you challenged Clement Freud, actually, on hesitation. I'm going to give Clement the benefit of the doubt on this occasion, to be fair, and say, Clement, you have 4 seconds on shortening, starting now.
Take a 6'2" woman and use shortening if you are...
So Clement Freud was then speaking when the whistle went, so he has gained 2 extra points in that round, taking him into the lead alongside Peter Jones, and Sheila Hancock's in 3rd place, 2 points behind, and Kenneth Williams 2 points behind Sheila. And Peter Jones, your turn to begin. My goodness, that is the subject that Ian Messiter has written on the card for you to talk about for 60 seconds, starting now.
I associate it with a rich, dark drink. But my own goodness, I suppose, it's very embarrassing for me to try to even talk about it for a minute. And...
Kenneth Williams.
Sorry to say embarrassing. Why don't you shut up then and let me do it? I'll do it. I'll talk about it. I'll do it.
Well, you'll talk about Peter Jones's goodness, will you?
Yes, if you like. I'll have a go.
No, I think what we do there is, I think it was a very nice joke. Thank you for the laugh you gave us, Kenneth. But it wasn't a real challenge, so the only fair thing to do is to leave the subject with Peter. Nobody gains any points. Peter, you have 47 seconds on My Goodness starting now.
And it can be drunk with shellfish, this dark, rich liquor.
Clement Freud.
Repetition of dark, we've already
Yes,
had
and the rich, and the liquid.
all that sort of stuff.
So, Clement, you turn a point, and the subject, My Goodness, 42 seconds starting now.
It was Easter Tuesday in 1963 when this sad woman walked out to sea and found, having lost her depths and her knickers, that there was nothing she could do but cry out for help or succor, at which I took off my vest, my trousers, and my jacket, and dived into the sea. Swimming strongly with both arms, I reached her, rendered her unconscious with a sharp blow to her upper neck, and dragged her back to the firm sand of the beach, which many people thought was My Goodness, but in fact I knew that she had in her wallet 4 20-pound notes.
Sheila Hancock actually challenged half a second before. You were doing a Clement Freud on us. What is it,
I'm
Sheila?
challenging for deviation. Whereabouts on her person did she have the wallet if she was stripped down to knickers or whatever it was?
Yes. Well done.
I didn't say she took anything else off, but just her knickers. She had a money belt.
Likely tale.
Oh, a likely tale. The whole thing's a likely tale, isn't
Yes.
it? Well, what do I do? I mean, we didn't establish
Oh,
that
let
she
him
had...
have it. I don't care.
No, I think I should let you have it, because he plays the game far more often.
I don't
than
believe the
Sheila.
whole story. Actually, I don't believe Clement would for 1 minute strip
Never
off his
mind,
clothes
that
and
was
leap into the
most
sea.
wonderfully fluent. Wonderfully
It was wonderfully fluent, but I don't believe that she
Wouldn't do
had
it for 20 pounds.
I
He
don't-
would stand on the bank negotiating.
I don't believe she had this 20 pounds on her, and I think that was his fluency eluded him at the last few seconds, and Sheila got him very cleverly with half a second to go. My goodness, Sheila, starting now.
It is...
No, Clement Freud actually got in Clement Freud challenge on a quarter of a second. What is the challenge?
Hesitation.
Oh, you mean...
No, I don't think it was quite. Almost hesitation, but not quite. So, Sheila, you have 0.5 seconds to go on My Goodness, starting now.
I happen to be very...
Sheila actually got 2 points at that particular moment.
Blasted the mic, too.
So she's taken the lead. She's alongside Clement Freud. They both have 7 points at the end of that round. Peter's trailing by 1 and Kenneth by 4. And Kenneth, you begin the next round, and the subject is Hooters. You talk about Hooters. 60 seconds, starting now.
It's a very interesting slang term for noses, and Bernard Shaw maintained that the larger these were, the better it was for the resonance in the vocal sense of the word. Now, he always maintained that if you placed your palm against the spine of a person and listened to the deep register, you could feel the vibrations they were giving off, so to speak. And Paul Robeson had very fine
Sheila Hancock
reverberation,
challenge,
I meant, you see. I meant to say reverberation.
Yes. No, Sheila challenge first.
Yes, it's repetition and a touch of deviation, placing hands...
This is the thing,
I
mean, sometimes those who play regularly, you can see they're very clever. They come up to a word they've already used, and they very quickly think and change to another word. But how can you change another word for vibrations on the spur of the second?
I was going to reverberations.
Oh, yes, but bad luck. You didn't quite get it out, Kenneth. All right. So, Sheila, I agree with the challenge, and you have 26 seconds on Hooters starting now.
You can have the high type or the low ones. There are also those rather nasty ones that play a tune, and I think don't fulfill their function about warning people that a car is coming. I have a very ordinary, straightforward one that allows people to know that they must get out of the way. Referring to the slang use of the word, we have a fine selection of Hooters on this team.
I think she was just about to refer to the parson's nose, actually.
Yes.
Sheila, you were speaking when the whistle went, so you got an extra point, and alas, we have to wind up the show because we have no more time. To tell you the final result, Kenneth finished a moderate fourth, to Peter Jones' mild third, to Clement Freud's tough second, to our undoubted winner of this week, Sheila Hancock. We do hope you've enjoyed this edition of Just a Minute, and will want to tune in again next time. Until then, from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The programme was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by Simon Rent.
Present Kenneth Williams, Clement Freud, Peter Jones, and Andree Melly in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Hello and welcome to Just a Minute. And once again, it is my pleasure to ask our four keen competitors of the game if they can talk for just 1 minute on some unlikely subject without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject which is written on the card in front of me. And of course, according to how well they do this, they will gain points or lose them. And we're going to begin the show this week with Andree Melly. Andree, can you talk on the minute waltz? 60 seconds, starting now.
We hear the minute waltz every time you listen to this particular program. It is composed by Chopin, and I happen to know about it because somebody gave me the record for a present. The musician, the pianist, that is a Philippe Entremont, and he plays it charmingly, I think. Why it has this title, I don't know, because you cannot, in fact, get through it in 60 seconds. It takes a great deal longer. It's got a second title, which was given because...
Clement Freud is challenged.
Repetition of second.
No, second. All right, Kenneth. It was 60 seconds before, and she said second title, so one was in the plural. Oh, good, he says, to get out of it. An incorrect challenge, Clement, so Andree Melly gets a point for that, and she keeps the subject. 32 seconds on the minute waltz, Andree, starting now.
George Sands asked the man who wrote it...
Clement Freud is challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes, with a definite hesitation.
Well, she hesitated because she said Sands, and it's Sand. There's no S on the end.
Thank
George
you.
Sand.
Thank you very much.
She knew she'd done it wrong. That's what made her nervy. I could see the blood flushed to her face, didn't it?
Yes.
That's what got you going, girl,
Yes.
didn't it? You were throbbing.
Yes.
I knew. I knew. I could tell.
Thank
Tell
you.
that. I thought it communicates itself to me straight away. That sort of thing. I understood her flight, you see.
Yes. Well, I'm delighted that you were able to explain it to the listeners who may not already have...
That's right. That's
get
right.
what you had, yes. Well done. Thank you very much, Kenneth. Will you shut up now? Clement, you have 28 seconds on the minute waltz, starting now.
As a dance, the minute waltz has particular appeal for me because it seems to me to have movement which combines deviation of step with repetition of direction combined with a hesitation of tempo, and therefore could not have been invented for a better panel game than that to which Ian Messiter lends his name, which is so very ably judged by you, Nicholas Parsons, and played, I think...
Andree Melly, you've just challenged.
Deviation, because I do not believe that Clement Freud thinks that Nicholas Parsons judges this particular game with...
Before you'd said it, I was about to give Clement Freud 2 points for his nice compliment, but I'm inclined to believe that you are accurate in what you've just said, Andree Melly. So therefore, I can't give you 2 points, but I do give you 1 point for a very clever challenge, and you have 1 second left on the minute waltz, starting now.
A waltz definition.
Well, Andree Melly was then speaking when the whistle went, and as you know, the whistle tells us that 60 seconds is up. Andree got him with 1 second to go with a brilliant challenge. He has a commanding lead over everybody at the end of that round. Clement Freud, your turn to begin. Women's football. Can you talk on that for 60 seconds? Starting now.
Women's football, also known as women's football, is really very similar to the same game played by people of the opposite sex, but for some extraordinary reason, the females of the species do not appear to have a strong kick as do their opposites. They slap you as hard.
Peter Jones has challenged.
The repetition of opposite.
The opposite sex?
The opposite sex.
And he said opposites. No, he said the opposite sex, and then this time he said opposites.
Oh, I thought you weren't allowed to do that.
No, I've been just given it against him last time, and he challenged Andree on seconds and second.
Is that right? Well, I'm glad I had to say something because, of course, people won't know I'm here. I haven't had an opportunity of speaking before. Hello, everybody. Well, now you can just award him another point and then get on
giving
with
yourself a plug. How is it? All the way done it last week.
I'm delighted he's made his presence felt. You made your presence felt very early on in the show this week. Peter's done the same. Thank you, Peter. Thank you. You have an incorrect challenge, so you have a point to Clement, and you have 43 seconds on women's football starting now.
The rules of women's football are identical to those described by the Football Association and other bodies administering the game in general. For instance, even if you are a lady, you may not kick another.
Peter Jones has challenged.
A repetition of kick.
Yes, you did say kick before. Their kick wasn't quite so strong. Peter Jones, that time I agree with your challenge, so you have a point, and you have 27 seconds on women's football starting now.
This is something that I would cheerfully pay to see and leave my home for on a Saturday afternoon, because I think it would be much more...
Kenneth Williams has challenged.
Deviation is leading us to believe that he would cheerfully pay, and I know he's as mean as old Boots. He's never devious remark to make.
Well, I happen to know he's not as mean as old Boots, but...
He never bought me a cup of tea in the canteen once. What's it all about?
But even
again and again, must fly out this purse, I can tell you.
Oh, that is devious in the extreme.
Exactly.
Devious.
So I get the subject,
no,
right?
you don't. even if he...
We can't get it out. Look at it. Even if...
Sometimes I can't get it out. What I was trying to say, Kenneth, is... even if what you said was true, he was still not deviating from the subject on the card, women's football. Peter, continue, please. 18 seconds left, starting now.
And I can foresee...
Oh, you see what happens? He gets challenged and he can't get going again. Often occurs. Andree Melly was the first to challenge.
Well, with a hesitation.
Yes, 15 seconds now with you, Andree, on women's football, starting now.
We have certain vulnerable parts of the body which can get hurt in such
Kenneth Williams has challenged.
This is deviation. I mean,
it is not deviation.
We have certain vulnerable parts.
Have you got
I have got certain vulnerable parts.
Isn't it? All right, Kenneth, we all have certain vulnerable parts of the body.
Yes.
And Andree is still not deviating from the subject.
Rubbish, she's making it sound as though she's the only sex. I've got them, and nobody's mistaken me for a lady. Nobody's coming out to me and saying, hello, miss, do you fancy a bit?
Andree Melly, you were not deviating from women's football, so you have 5 seconds left, starting now.
A good pair of football boots is very important. And then you come to the socks. Striped ones, but not all together.
So, in spite of Kenneth Williams' delightful intimidations, Andree Melly managed to keep going with women's football and gain a number of points in that round, including one for speaking when the whistle went, and she now has a very definite lead at the end of the round. Kenneth we're now going to hear from you within the context of the
Well,
game.
at last, high time. It's really ludicrous. Come all the way here.
Independence, Kenneth.
Oh.
The most independent character, and will you talk on the subject of independence starting now?
Well, if we are going to discuss this totally objectively, and of course it's practically impossible to do that, though the polarity between the objective and the subjective is one which we could obviously discuss for hours and hours on end.
Clement Freud has challenged you.
Repetition.
Very definite repetition. 47 seconds on independence with you, Clement, starting now.
When our village made its unilateral declaration of independence, customs posts were set up between Southwold and Walberswick, and a small force was recruited with guns and other equipment, passport stamps, and the odd pen with purple ink.
Peter Jones, a challenge.
It's too far-fetched. They didn't have passports, in...
You believe all
Suffolk.
the rest, but not the passports. I think
Yes.
the whole thing is devious. I quite agree that the idea of Southwold, of Walberswick declaring unilateral independence, I'm surprised
You
it wasn't
remember
challenged
saying
before.
that the important thing was to keep going on the subject.
Without deviation or hesitation or repetition, I consider you were utterly devious.
I kept going on the subject of independence. Whether you believe that Walberswick got independence...
You kept going on...
Andree was
That's a very
absolutely right.
clever way of trying to catch me out. You kept going on the subject of independence, but the challenge was that you were not passports involved in this situation.
You were not passports involved?
Oh, it is what they do to me. They gave me such a straight my grammar disappeared.
You were not passports involved! Oh, they'll have to edit this, you know, otherwise...
Kenneth, I'll tell you something, they won't. And my bad grammar once again will come over on the air. All I'm going to say is that I agree with Peter Jones's challenge. It was devious, and therefore you have 28 seconds, Peter, on independence starting now.
We have a copy at home hanging on the wall of the famous American Declaration of Independence. My wife, as you may know, comes from the New World.
No, it's Kenneth.
Deviation, we don't know at all about his wife. No, he's assuming she's Wilhelmina of the Netherlands, isn't he? National biography published. We don't know anything of the kind. It's right, out of the subject. Come on, let me just...
Kenneth, he was not assuming that she was Queen of the Netherlands.
Well, he said, as you all know, and we don't know. Nobody here does.
Kenneth, contain yourself, please. If you want us to stop the show for a few
Exactly
moments.
what he's doing.
What? I disagree with your challenge, Kenneth. There are 18 seconds on independence with you, Peter Jones, starting now.
I wish I could recall all the signatories of this document. I think 48 in all, which were just about...
Clement Freud is challenged.
Deviation.
Why?
There were nothing like 48 signatories to the Declaration of Independence.
He said he thought there were 48.
Yeah, but nothing, to think that far from the truth.
Exactly. I was going to say that.
Between 30 and 50.
What I was going to make.
Between 30 and 50.
I believe there were 13 states.
No. There were far more signatories.
This is one of those occasions.
Oh, yes, the audience will know.
The audience will know, yes, that's true. Take your pince-nez off at the back. Yes. It's got a book of reference.
I'm inclined to agree that Peter Jones is much more close to the truth in this situation. So, Peter, you keep the subject, and there are 12 seconds on independence starting now.
There were the Adams brothers, for instance, and Franklin.
Andree Melly is
He
challenged.
hesitated after the...
Yes,
brothers.
he only just, but enough for you to have a point, Andree. And 7 seconds on independence starting now.
This is something which countries gain and people get. It's supposed to be admirable, but...
Peter Jones challenged. No.
Suppose.
Peter challenged just before the whistle. What was it, Peter?
Hesitation. She said, it's
Yes, it was as enough a hesitation as yours was, so you have a point and half a second on independence, Peter, starting now.
Thank you.
So Peter Jones gained a few points in that round, and he has moved forward into first place alongside Andree Melly. Clement Freud is trailing, and Kenneth Williams is trailing more than somewhat. Peter, your turn to begin. Winning! And you are at this particular moment, but would you talk on the subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, this is something that doesn't very often happen to me. I always feel that it's a great pity when one does that somebody else has to lose. But, of course, that is the penalty one pays when one enjoys this marvelously exhilarating sensation of actually conquering a team of people who are all bent on the idea...
Clement Freud is...
My challenge was on the team of people who were all bent.
Yes. I do think.
Therefore, the challenge is on hesitation because the idea, the next phrase came a very long
No,
way.
your challenge, which one are you going to have? Your challenge was deviation. Unbent. No, it's a delightful thought for which we will award you a point because you came in so rapidly with a delightful challenge, but he was not deviating from the subject of winning. So, Peter, Clement got the point. You keep the subject. Winning 35 seconds starting now.
Of course, there are many.
Clement Freud is challenged.
He's already had his, of course, in this minute.
Yes, we occasionally allow them all, and one, of course. And this was the second one. Yes. So, Clement, you have a point, and there are 33 seconds on winning starting now.
Of course, if you really want to win, there are a number of words you must never use for a second time. And the one which I employed at the beginning of my sentence was exactly an instance, in fact. Winning in just a minute is something I am fairly accustomed to, mostly because the other people lose with unrelenting
Andree Melly has
A hesitation before unrelenting.
Yes. He would now become slightly embarrassed.
Yes, I know.
Yes, with justification, he was embarrassed at his remarks, so he dried up. And there are 12 seconds on winning with you, Andree, starting now.
Of course, this is something which we all want to do when we play games. And for some reason, if you are
Kenneth Williams is challenged.
I don't want to do it. My record proves it. I never win. I just come here and chat away with your magazine there. And I don't matter if I win or lose or what. So I think it's a devious statement to make that we all come here wanting to win. Absolutely devious.
All right, so she says we all come here wanting to win. Actually, I think you all do want to win.
Get out of it, I don't care.
But you probably less than the others. Anyway,
she's making an unwarranted generalization.
It is a statement that she's entitled to make within the context of this subject of winning. She believes that she's entitled to say she was not deviating from the subject. There are 4 seconds left. You, Andree, on winning starting now.
Some of us are so unselfish and of such a wonderful character like Kenneth Williams.
Clement Freud has challenged you.
Deviation.
Why?
I think any of us are unselfish. We wouldn't be here.
Well, I don't know what to say now, because I did say that she was allowed to think that you were unselfish, even if you weren't.
Well, I'd like to challenge as well.
Why?
He's always getting his oar in, isn't he?
Because she wasn't talking about winning, she was talking about Kenneth Williams, and he certainly isn't winning. Or he isn't this afternoon.
Oh, no, he certainly isn't winning. He's got a point, yes? So I know what we'll do.
I've got loads of points. Covered in them.
I know what we'll do in this unique situation. There's 1 second to go, so we'll give it to Kenneth Williams for 1 second.
What? What's the subject? I don't know what are they on about?
You've got 1 second on winning, starting now.
Oh, yes, I think the adrenaline's flowing.
So Kenneth Williams was then speaking when the whistle went. He's still in 4th place, alas. Clement Freud has moved into 2nd place alongside Peter Jones. Andree Melly still in the lead. And Kenneth Williams, you begin the 3 Gorgons. Can you talk about them?
Don't be confused with Gorgonzola, which is goodbye in any language.
I'd save those jokes for the round.
Oh, sorry.
60 seconds. Talk on the subject starting now.
Yeah, well, there were these 3 girls with snakes in their hair, and 2 of them were gods. 1 was mortal, so they said to Perseus, when you get there, your only chance is with Medusa. So, as she had the ability, along with her sisters, to turn all men that looked upon them to stone, he done it by looking in his shield at her reflection, then he brought the scythe round and cut her head off. You see, and the blood shot out of her head because it was cut off her body. Well, naturally, it would shoot out, wouldn't it, under those circumstances? But also, with the blood, also sprang this horse. Now, this horse, you see, come out of her head.
Yeah.
Incredible, called Pegasus. And the bloke got away on the horse, you see. They said on Pegasus he rode. The other 2...
You've been challenged 7 times.
What about? What about?
Well, the first one to challenge you was very long way back, which was Andree Melly. What was it, Andree?
Because he was talking as slowly as I was talking when he said I was talking too slowly.
Oh, bad luck, Andree. Bad luck. I thought you were going to challenge because he said 2 lookings, but it's too late now. I don't think he was going slowly. I think he was going magnificently. He had the bit between his teeth and he was raging forward with Perseus and Medusa and the Gorgons.
Certainly sounded as though he had.
So, Kenneth, In spite of all those challenges, 34 seconds are still left on you with the three Gorgons starting now.
No, most wish they weren't. However, our Perseus rushed off, but
Clement Freud is challenged.
We've already had Perseus.
Yes. Once you're challenged, it's best to stop, because if you get in again, or you get it against you, you've still got a lot of material to continue with.
How right you are. You seem to give me these tips so late in the day, Nicholas, and I've lost heart and almost fallen by the
Clement, I agree with your challenge. You have the three Gorgons and 30 seconds left, starting now.
At school, we had a trice of teachers who were known as the three Gorgons. One...
Kenneth Williams is challenged.
At school we had a trice of teachers.
Yes.
He's talking about grammar. I've never heard of a trice of teachers in my life. And I don't think any such thing exists. And I'm not going to sit here and have people talking ungrammatical rubbish about trice. A trice of teachers? I've never heard such rubbish in my life. It's ludicrous nonsense. How dare all these people here be misled in this ignorance?
I think under the stress of keeping going without...
Under the stress, my Aunt Fanny.
Under the stress...
Under the stress.
Oh, Kenneth, under the stress of your Aunt Fanny and all the other penalties in this game, you have been guilty of certain...
I'm not in the lead. I should be given a chance.
You won just recently, magnificently.
Ages ago. I had 2 light ales since then.
I'm not... It's a lovely line. I must remember that one.
I said to the barmaid, mine's a large one. She said, you order or boasting. The point.
Ian Messiter, give him 2 points.
Oh, thank you.
Because he enjoyed his dissertation.
Do I wrestle it from him?
No.
Oh, it's a disgrace.
Because whether it is ungrammatical or not, I'm not sure, but certainly he kept going very well, and he hasn't deviated from the three Gorgons, and there are 24 seconds left, starting now.
This professorial trio endeared themselves to the hearts of all their students by coming forth with a brace of subjects.
Andree Melly. Yes, Andree, you got him first.
Deviation. It just
No, it was hesitation.
And it's hesitation.
It's too late now. You're first.
He's going to win.
You could have won. You could have got the point and won the game. But alas, your first challenge was deviation. He didn't deviate. So I've got to be fair within the rules of the game. Yes. Clement, you're still there with 14.5 seconds on the three Gorgons, starting now.
In mythology, the Greek...
Andree, you did get in that time.
Yes.
Hesitation. Why didn't you say it last time? All right. So, gird your loins, girl. Because I have received a message that we're in the last round and there are 13.5 seconds left on you, and you're still in the lead on the three Gorgons, starting now.
There's this marvellous steak and kidney pie, which you can get at the pub on the Surrey-Sussex border, known as the Three Gorgons.
Kenneth Williams is challenged.
Oh, I was going to say it's deviation, but then she went on to say it was the name of the pub.
I know she did. So you got in just too late. In fact, it wouldn't have mattered anyway. You challenged again.
There's no pub called the Three Gorgons. I'm reliably informed by gentlemen in the front rows of publicans.
That was the one who said, are you boasting?
Easy on it.
I disagree with your challenge.
No flies on him, but you can see what I've been.
What was that one we didn't
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
Andree, you have another point, and you have 6 seconds on the three Gorgons, starting now.
There's this sign outside with these 3 heads with these snakes.
Peter Jones is challenged.
Repetition of sign.
Yes, and this. All right.
That was good. Yes, he got in there, didn't he? That was good.
It's not going to make any difference to the result, unfortunately.
Oh.
No. There are 3.5 seconds on the three Gorgons with you, Peter, starting now.
And there they were on the Surrey side of the river.
How do you know? What are you talking about? How can 3 Greek girls be on the Surrey side of the river?
But he was probably referring to the pub that Andree had already mentioned. So he has another point, and there's 1 second left on the three Gorgons, Peter, starting now.
Laughing like grapes.
So Peter Jones and Andree Melly gained a number of points in that round with the help of Kenneth Williams, because I disagree with all his challenges. So I have to give you the final result, because I told you this was going to be the last round. Kenneth Williams finished, alas, in 4th place. Well, I know, it's that he does win sometimes, but he gives so much to the show, doesn't he?
What's he given you?
Nothing, that's why he loses. Clement Freud finished in second place alongside Peter Jones. They were equal in second place. Andree Melly, who girded her loins magnificently, held her lead, and our victor is Andree Melly. We do hope you've enjoyed this edition of Just a Minute, and we'll want to tune in again at the same time next week when once again we take to the air and play Just a Minute. Until then, from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The program was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by David Hatch.
That edition of Just a Minute.
We present Kenneth Williams, Clement Freud, Peter Jones, and Aimi MacDonald in Just a Minute. And as the minute waltz fades away, here to tell you about it is our chairman, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you very much indeed. Hello and welcome once again to Just a Minute, where once again we're pleased to welcome back in the fourth chair Aimi MacDonald, who has played the game a few times to compete against these three tough male exponents of the game, whom you all know too well for me to mention. Once again I'm going to ask them to speak if they can for just 1 minute on some unlikely subject without hesitation, without repetition, and without deviating from the subject on the card, if they can. Let us begin the show this week with Clement Freud. Clement, a lovely subject to start the show with, because it so often happens in this program, getting knotted. Clement, will you talk to us about getting knotted for 60 seconds, starting now?
Getting knotted is a colloquial phrase, which I think at one time meant becoming spliced, joining in holy matrimony, taking unto oneself a better half. But now has a completely different meaning.
Aimi MacDonald, why have you challenged?
Deviation, I suppose. He's mixing up getting knotted with getting...
Spliced?
No, it's the other one, hitched.
Spliced, hitched, knotted,
yes.
You see. I think what he's saying is, you see, because of splice and hitch, there are all types of knots, aren't they? I think it was originally getting knotted and probably has now become to mean something else which he's about to tell us about.
Oh.
So... I think I must give the benefit of the doubt to Clement Freud and say that he has a point for an incorrect challenge. He keeps the subject, therefore, and he has 43 seconds left, starting now.
Nowadays, getting knotted means, as Aimi MacDonald so correctly challenged, not getting married.
Just a minute, we must interrupt there. If Aimi MacDonald's challenge was correct and you say it was correct, Clement Freud, I have to give her a point and the subject. So, Aimi, you have a point which has been awarded to you by Clement Freud because he admitted that he was at fault just a minute ago, and you have 31 seconds starting now.
Oh, crikey.
Clement Freud is challenged.
Hesitation.
Yes, I thought it was rather clever of you, Clement, to give it to us so rapidly and get it back. So you have a point for a correct challenge and 30 seconds on getting knotted starting now.
Kenneth Williams is the sort of man who uses terms like get knotted. And as I...
Peter Jones is challenged.
Well, of course, he isn't. He doesn't use it. I've never heard him use this expression. I've always rather admired the way Kenneth has spoken. And the...
There's a little bit of flattery will get you a very long way in this game, won't you? All right, so it's a difficult thing on which to judge whether Kenneth uses it a lot or not. I don't think he uses it a lot, so Peter gets the benefit of the doubt, and there are 23 seconds for getting knotted with you, Peter, starting now.
Something to do with worms and snakes being tied up. And it's a very insulting thing to say to anybody, just as it is if you put a knot in a...
Kenneth Williams, a challenge.
Hesitation, I fear there was an error there.
Yes, there was a very definite error. So everybody's speaking the first round, which is lovely, isn't it? Kenneth, we're now going to hear from you. The subject is getting knotted, and there are 13 seconds left, starting now.
Of course, the accurate description of this is the maintenance of the nervous system into a whole series of knots. So, making you, I strangulate you, you see, with anger. They say, get knotted, meaning that you are all knotted up.
Kenneth was speaking then when the whistle went.
That means I'm in the lead, right?
Let me just remind everybody, Kenneth, when the whistle is blown, it means 60 seconds is up.
And I've got a point.
And whoever is speaking then gets a point. And this
So I'm in the lead.
Kenneth was... Yes, you're in the lead. You have 2 points.
Good.
Clement Freud's in the lead alongside you. Peter Jones and Aimi MacDonald both have 1 point. They're not very far behind you. Aimi MacDonald, will you begin the second round for us? And the subject that Ian Messett has thought of for you is the superior sex. Can you talk to us about the superior sex for 60 seconds, starting now?
And the superior sex is, of course, the female sex, because we're so much cleverer and so much more capable than the male sex.
Peter challenged Wivey Jones.
Well, I'm sorry to stop her, but she did repeat much. She did much twice, you see.
Yes, she did, yes. But I think, well, all right. Occasionally one has to be accurate. If he repeats a word, then one has to be fair. And there are 52 seconds on the superior sex starting now.
Well, I don't think there is such a thing. I think they are complementary. Like...
Kenneth Williams has challenged. Why?
2, I think.
Yes, there were 2 things, so we're being tougher now. 47 seconds on the superior sex with you, Kenneth, starting now.
It is unquestionably the male sex. There is no doubt whatsoever in my mind about that.
Hesitation.
Yes, or a repetition of
Well, I sort of said it now. I suddenly realised it was so right. I sort of fell about because I was so right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Last time Aimi was with us, she sent us something which she thought was so right, and she fell about. And you got her on that one. She's got you on this one. Aimi, the subject is the superior sex. You have 38 seconds starting now.
Women can do so much more. I mean, they can have babies, they can cook, look after houses, and go to...
Clement Freud is challenged. Why would you...
I agree with Aimi.
So what does that mean?
I wanted to have another point.
Because I artfully took you up in the first round and snatched a point from you for Aimi, you want to deliberately give her one this time. All right, Kenneth,
Because she can cook.
She can cook. Ah, that's the reason you're giving her a point, are you? Don't please give each other too many points. It makes the game too impossible to judge. There are 30 seconds on the superior sex, still with you, Aimi, having gained another point with the help of Clement Freud, starting now.
On top of that, they have so much more integrity. They actually make the male sex believe that they are the superior ones, when in actual fact they're not. And that in itself is quite a feat. So that makes the female sex much more cleverer. And I think...
Yes, Clement, what is your challenge?
Just,
you agree with her?
You're absolutely right.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, all right. I agree with your challenge on this occasion, and you have a point, and there are 13 seconds left. The superior sex starting now.
An American gentleman whom I met on a Boeing 747 crossing the Atlantic gave me...
Peter Jones has challenged. Why?
Deviation.
Why?
Because it's nothing to do with the superior sex. It may be a superior airline, but it hasn't anything to do with sex. His story...
He probably was about to go on and prove the point, but I must say the way he'd started didn't convince me that he was about to make any point about the superior sex.
No,
so
it didn't...
I wouldn't go on, Peter, because I'm leaning your way on this one and giving you a point. And 6 seconds left, starting now.
And if you can examine both sexes close to and thoroughly...
There's no need for filth. We don't want to lie.
So what is your challenge, Kenneth?
Deviation. Undoubtedly deviation, most devious.
Well, why? Why is it most devious?
Because we're here to discuss the superior sex, not the close examination of both.
But maybe by the close examination of both, you'd find out which was the superior one. Peter, you have a point for an incorrect challenge. You have half a second, starting now.
It's wonderful.
Jones now has a very definite lead at the end of that round. Lead of 2 over Aimi. Clement and Kenneth are all equal in second place. Peter Jones, we're going to hear from you again because it's your turn to begin the next round. The subject, just simply, uncle. will you talk about Uncle for 60 seconds starting now?
Yes, I had a favorite one. And during the war, when cinemas offered half-price seats to servicemen, he went wearing his bowler hat and carrying an umbrella to the box office at the Empire Cinema and said, half-price Secret Service, and was admitted. And he also was able to get into places like the Royal Enclosure at Ascot by giving the policeman on the gate a £5 note and saying, put this on my horse in the 3 o'clock. And he didn't have a horse, of course, but...
Clement Freud is challenged.
A repetition of the 2 horses he didn't have.
Rather devious thought, dropping the fiver to the police. Clement, I agree with your challenge of repetition, so you gain a point on the subject, and there are 25 seconds left, starting now.
Colloquially, the word uncle means...
Aimi MacDonald, why have you challenged?
Hesitation.
Oh, I don't think so, Aimi, no. Clement was generous to you a little while ago, so I think...
He said the word uncle.
Oh, do that again. Very good, that.
Yes,
very good.
Yes, it didn't sound very much like Clement Freud. No, I think that he didn't really hesitate. Enough.
Timing, yeah.
No, it was
No,
good
not
timing.
enough.
Not enough, no, to gain you a point, Amy. So we leave it with Clement, and there are 21 seconds left on Uncle Clement, starting now.
Means a pawn shop or broker. Up and down the city road, in and out the... wherever. That's the way the money goes. Pop goes the weasel.
I would agree with that hesitation, Peter. There are 13.5 seconds on Uncle starting now.
In and out the Eagle, of course, which was a public house in that area, frequented by the poor people who worked in that neighborhood. And they were often short of money and took...
So Peter Jones cleverly kept going by substituting a different word as he went along, which is one of the real arts of this game, which Clement Freud shows us so well on occasions. So, Peter, you still have the lead. You're 1 point ahead of Clement, who's crept up, and Kenneth Williams and Aimi MacDonald are both equal in 3rd place. And Kenneth, your turn to begin. The subject, trivia. Would you talk on trivia for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, it's a collection of very small and important things, and I've got a number of those. I've a little chamber pot, and I've got a little whale. That's a souvenir of a rather charming occasion when I was in a play called Moby Dick. And I always remember it, 'cause the opening night I had a very long scene to play, and the director, who was also the leading actor, leant forward and said, "Get off." And, of course, the whole thing was cut, you see. So I went off and stood in the wings, feeling very woebegone and wan. And another artist said, "What are you doing here? Hadn't you got that long thing done?" I said, "Yes, he just said get off." And they said, "No, did he?" I said, "Yes, isn't it awful?" And we were both laughing. And then he suddenly said, "Oh, dear, it's me, isn't it?" I said, "Yes, of course, Ian, I seen you were on." And when he ran, but it was too late, of course, you see. And he had all these lines about the black and the white with my hand in mine.
MacDonald has challenged you at last. Yes, Amy.
Deviation.
Why?
Well, he's talking about, everything
This is trivia.
except trivia.
This is trivia, the whole thing. Of course it is.
Yes, even all the deviations and repetitions and everything else.
Yes, it's all trivia, dear. It's all trivia. That's right. All right.
I suppose, yes, that's quite a clever interpretation of trivia. So, Amy, a good challenge, because...
She should have challenged on repetition, shouldn't she? Really?
Yes, and meditation, yes.
That's what she should have done, of course.
Yes, but I think on...
generous, weren't you?
Yes.
Yes, I thought you were.
Yes,
you were overlooking
you
the
wanted
first
to have
part.
a point. Yes, you wanted to
Mistake.
encourage him. I very good of you, Amy. You're playing it like the chaps now. Well done. So, you got a point for an incorrect challenge. And 3 seconds with your trivia starting now.
Another is wood shavings, which come in very handy for rorting.
The Kenneth Williams fan club in the front row here are cheering like mad. And they were delighted that Kenneth was speaking when the whistle went, because he got the extra point. And he has leapt forward into 3rd place. And the subject is back with Amy. Last nights. So can you talk for 60 seconds on that subject, starting now?
In my diary this morning, I wrote down that last night was rather a pleasant one for me. I started off by going to the theatre in not very much traffic. I got there in plenty of good time. I sat putting my makeup on relaxing with a cigarette at the same time. And then I went on stage to a lovely audience who loved everything I did, and everybody in the cast was so happy, and it really was a really very nice night. Afterwards, I was picked up by a very nice gentleman. Oh, sorry, no, that's not right. Yes. Terrible.
I think Peter said you shouldn't reveal your pickups, really.
No, that was wrong, yes.
Oh, yeah. We don't know it was wrong. If you say it was wrong, it's only your memory of the situation. We don't know what happened, Amy.
No.
Was it wrong after?
Did somebody buzz me?
Yes, I did. I wanted to save you any further embarrassment.
Yeah. So before, Amy, you tell us how wrong you were, we'll give Peter Jones a point on the subject with 26 seconds left on last night's starting now.
It was mild for the time of year, uneventful as far as I was concerned, as I didn't do very much. I had a drink about 6 and then moseyed round to some neighbours, where we spent a couple of hours congratulating each other on the rise of the property in our area. And some young people came and they started groaning about the rise in...
Clement Freud is challenged. Why?
The rise, repetition.
Yes, well, everything's rising these days, I suppose it's... but I'm afraid you can't repeat the word twice in just a minute, so, Peter, Clement has a correct challenge and a point and 2 seconds.
Scintillating evening, though, you spent. Really. Got me going over here, huh?
But he did keep going on the subject, didn't he? So 2 seconds with you, Clement Freud. Last night's starting now.
Last night I kept going on the subject.
So Clement Freud was speaking when the whistle went, gained the extra point, and has now crept up a little on Peter Jones. Peter, your turn to begin. The subject is topsy-turvy. Can you talk to us on that one for 60 seconds, starting now?
Well, it means turning something upside down, like Samuel Butler in his book Erewhon, which is everywhere.
Clement Freud is challenged. Why?
Deviation.
Why?
It's nowhere.
Nowhere. That's right. It is.
Nowhere.
And
well,
so am I.
Actually, that was pretty obvious, Peter, that you were nowhere. The thing is, of course, you could have wriggled out of it by saying that the book was everywhere, but too late.
Yes. Right.
Clement, I agree with your challenge, and you have 47 seconds on a topsy-turvy starting now.
In a topsy-turvy world, Amy MacDonald would not only be king, but would speak for minutes on end without giggling, would rule the Conservatives with a rod of iron, and amuse the Labour Party at the same time. A topsy-turvy existence is very much what many people need beyond all else. Humour, idiocy.
Amy MacDonald's challenge, why?
Hesitation.
Yes, after idiocy, he dried up completely, didn't he? So, Amy, I agree with your challenge, and you have a point and 21 seconds on topsy-turvy starting now.
When my cupboards get topsy-turvy, I take everything out and I start all over again. It can take an awful long time, actually, to get everything back in order, because usually the paper bags that everything has fallen out with gets all...
Dissertation on Amy MacDonald's topsy-turvy life has taken her into third place behind Clement Freud, who's 1 point behind our leader, who is still Peter Jones, and the next subject is with Clement Freud. And Clement, the subject which we have now is what I shall do with my beard when I have finished with it. Clement, can you talk on that long subject for 60 seconds, starting now?
The question, what I shall do with my beard when I have finished with it, is one that supposes that I am going to finish with it. A supposition which I honestly do not envisage.
Kenneth Williams is challenged.
Well, deviation. If he doesn't can't envisage, don't discuss it. Shut his mouth out and let somebody else. Ludicrous.
Well, the thing is, you see, Kenneth, and I have to be accurate on this, especially when we have a tight contest. After all, as long as you keep going on the subject and not deviate from the subject on the card...
No, I was helping him out. He was obviously fading into oblivion. I could see it. It was written all over.
Well, let's see. He keeps the subject because it's an incorrect challenge and his oblivion may arrive, you never know, any moment. There are 46 seconds on what I shall do with my beard when I have finished with it, Clement, starting now.
I shall, I suppose, although this is unlikely to happen, grip a razor in my left hand, stretch my face with the right, and in a few brisk strokes remove from my chin and upper face such stubble.
Aimi MacDonald of challenge. Why?
His beard isn't on his upper face. That's his forehead.
That's a very clever challenge, yes. So, Aimi, you have a point, and the subject, and there are 28 seconds on what I shall do with my beard when I have finished with it. Starting now.
If it was the very thick one, I would probably send it to a shop and get it made up into a hairpiece. It would be very practical, actually.
Okay, the challenge, why?
Well, because everything just tailed away. I mean, it's hesitation of the worst kind.
Oh, the worst? Well, I don't say the worst kind, the most enchanting kind. She was quite overcome with the thought of her beard being turned into a headpiece. So, Kenneth, you helped her out there. You have the subject. And there are 16 seconds left on what I shall do with my beard when I have finished with it, starting now.
Well, should the situation arise, I would remove it and make of this remnant a rather delightful and embroidered pin cushion. And people could say, when I was showing them this, you could stick your pins in your ear.
So, Kenneth was speaking, Emma Lewis, and gained the extra point, and he's still in third place. Amy's 1 point behind.
How is it I'm doing all this and I'm getting nothing? It's a swindle, isn't it? What a fiddle!
I must point out to our listeners, all that was brought about by the fact that Kenneth wouldn't believe what was going on. He left his chair to look at the score, which he and Messiter keeps. And Aimi MacDonald, your turn to begin. The subject, daydreams. Would you talk to us about that for 60 seconds, starting now?
Daydreams can be very relaxing things, and a lot of people often do it. I used to do it very much when I was at school, and it took form...
Kenneth Williams, the challenge, why?
Well, the I presume, wasn't hesitation.
Yes, and the do it was a bit of repetitious too, wasn't it? She did an awful lot of it at school, apparently. Kenneth, the repetition of gives you the subject and a point. There are 49 seconds left with you, Kenneth, starting now.
They are much the same as any other dream, except that they do occur during the daytime, and wish fulfillment plays a large part in the picture which they create. And it's often said that to move very quickly the ancient British sparkers, the wax, or stuff in the eardrum in order to pass time safely is a hallucinatory experience, as opposed to, say, a very sane vision of the future. Could you be had?
Peter Jones's challenge, why?
Repetition.
What of?
Repetition of...
Made Kenneth leap up and take his jacket off. It's obvious that the audience are in complete agreement with Peter's challenge. It was not only a clever challenge, but also Kenneth was speaking so quietly. I think he deserves to lose it, really. So, Peter, the audience are with you. You have the subject and a point, and there are 24 seconds left for daydreams, starting now.
Put me in mind of that wonderful show called Wake Up and Dream, because they are, as Kenneth rightly said, in midst the hesitation and deviation and repetition.
Clement Freud's challenge, why?
Deviation.
Why? Why?
You can't rightly say something with all those...
In the midst of it, I said.
And he got a challenge, you see, so it couldn't have been rightly said by Kenneth Williams.
Yeah, no, you see, we did establish that he was hesitating. I mean, repetiting. I'm sorry. That he was being repetitious.
There ought to be that word, repetiting. It's very nice.
That doesn't really describe what you were doing.
Thank you very much. You're very nice. Come again.
We've completely lost the challenge now. Peter was saying that in Kenneth's dissertation, in which he included repetition and hesitation and deviation, which could well be possible because nobody could hear exactly what he said here, even though the listeners did. Peter Jones, I disagree with Clement's challenge, so you have a point, and you have 13 seconds on daydreams starting now.
There are various ways in which one can encourage these daydreams to appear, like going to the cinema or outside in the open air, looking very hard at the clouds and trying to...
And so it now remains for me to give you the final score at the end of this edition of Just a Minute. It's a very, very even score. Aimi MacDonald was only 1 point. He was in 4th place, alas, but only 1 point behind Kenneth Williams, who was only 1 point behind Clement Freud. But he was, at the end of that last round, a few points behind Peter Jones, who leapt into the lead to become this week's winner. We do hope you've enjoyed this edition of Just a Minute, and we'll want to tune in again next time. Until then, from all of us here, goodbye.
The chairman of Just a Minute was Nicholas Parsons. The programme was devised by Ian Messiter and produced by Simon Brett.